As a child, we all long for a hero. As a society as a whole, we search for that leader that can be our hero. But as we mature and as we grow, it dawned on us that the hero is inside every one of us. And in the world's social media, we all start at zero. And slowly we search deep within ourselves to find who we are. And we have that moment of truth where we embrace that the hero that we've been searching for has been there all along. It is living deep inside of every one of us. And we start embracing that journey and we become that hero that we search for.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to episode 32 of Zero to Hero. Today we have a real hero in the house. For anybody that has military in their family, or maybe you are a veteran or active duty, you've got an idea what transitioning out of the military is like and how hard that is. Our next guest is helping out with that tremendously. Her name is Emma Toops. She is the founder of Toops Consulting LLC. So let's go ahead and bring her in, Emma Toops and Kevin Kwok.
Hey Emma, thanks for being on our show.
Good morning, Kevin. Hello, thank you.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Toops Consulting before we get started.
Okay, so I have to kind of chuckle because Gino announced it as Toops Consulting. Happens all the time because I work with transitioning military as well as students and adults in career transition. But Toops Consulting is all about creating efficiency and kind of accelerating the process of transition, whether the person is a student or an adult in career transition. That's what we focus on, is academic coaching and career transition. And what we do is we help connect people to either self-awareness or resources. And so in doing that, we are showing up as a instructor or an educator, as a mentor or a coach or a consultant. It just kind of depends on where they are. We meet them where they are in their transition, if they're stuck, if they're just kind of moving really slow, or they have a lot of energy and want to go fast, but there's something that is a barrier. So that's what we're all about in Toops Consulting, is we help folks to connect through coaching and consulting.
Awesome. So in a couple sentences, not about Toops Consulting, but give me an elevator pitch about who Emma is. Who are you?
Okay. Well, professionally, I am a retired Army major. I served on active duty for almost 18 years. And I retired as a major, though my intention was to retire as a lieutenant colonel. A little bit of backstory as far as why I do the work that I do. I wasn't ready. I thought I had more time. I thought I had 2.5 more years. And our government actually chose to downsize our military. And it didn't go all the way through, but that downside affected my opportunities, and I didn't realize what the implications would be for my career. And so the mistakes that I encountered in not being ready, not acknowledging the change in the environment, kind of believing in myself, but not understanding the environment I was in. All of that translated into the work that I do now. And there's a lot of self-reflection that I did in order to kind of realize the predicament that I was in was a little bit self-inflicted. You learn, you live and learn. People like us, we want to help people do better for the mistakes that we have done and made. But I'm also a first generation Filipino American. My parents were both immigrants. And some of what I have realized in the way that I teach and the way that I show up is partially because of growing up with immigrant parents. The transition process is something that everybody goes through. And I have a paradigm that I teach called solving the transition puzzle. And it has to do with who you are, identifying that and being confident in it, having drive and purpose, and then showing up in an environment where people understand you. And sometimes you have to adjust how you show up in order for people to actually do that. Um, and so that's a little bit about me.
That's awesome. So, first generation immigrant, I am myself as well. So, my parents immigrated from Hong Kong, so to the U.S. So that's awesome, and it does your mindset's a little different, right? Because
Mhm.
we are U.S. citizens and we grew up here, but no matter what, we look different, and the culture
Yeah.
we get,
Yes.
we have both worlds, right? Culture from, our homeland, and then
Yes.
also, growing up here. And I always tell people don't understand, even though I grew up here since I was pretty much 6, right? It's still different no matter what, I don't walk into a room looking the same, right? And there
Right.
is that, it is what it is. And because sometimes people will go, "Oh, you're American," and I go, "Yeah, but I don't look American."
You know what?
So,
It's interesting. The Army brought me to different places, as far as assignments in schools and deployments. And, having grown up with immigrant parents, you show up differently at home than you do at church or when you're out and about in town or at school because, the talking back to your elders, you don't do that at home, right? That, part of the culture is respect your elders, even if you don't agree with them. And this idea of showing up, acknowledging what is expected of your environment, this is part of how I do my work. And it actually, I realized it later that my ability to get on with the next thing, and that's kind of a phrase I use a lot in my business because I'm a transition coach, is what's next is recognizing the problem. Is the problem you? Or is the problem something in the environment that you can't control and you have to accommodate to? And my growing up, you had to show up differently sometimes with mom and dad than you might at school with your friends or in town or at church because they don't think like you do. They don't understand you the way that you understand yourself until they get to know you, right? And so until that is established, you have to show up just a little bit different. And there's a process to it, right? It takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of learning. And who has to do the learning? Is it you or other people?
That's good. That's so true, because if you think about it, I think even for militaries, I know that's what you kind of do too, is to help with the troops, right? With the Toops,
Yeah, it
your
happens all the
organization.
time. My name is not hard to say, but if it's something that somebody's going to mess up, it's really funny because they either add a letter and it becomes troops, or they take out a letter and it becomes tops. Which top in the military is also a vernacular, and we refer to first sergeants sometimes as top, and they are, the senior enlisted person in a company size organization. And because of me being a veteran and working a lot with transitioning military, happens all the time. My name gets changed to tops or troop.
But I think it's a similar feeling, right? So, like, I think, we have military in my wife's side of the family. And I think a lot of times, they feel like almost like immigrants too when they, get
Yeah,
out
it
the
can be
military,
very
because they're
disconcerting,
used to.
Yeah, everybody,
Mhm.
there's a lot of people who are really appreciative. America is patriotic and we welcome our men and women home when they've been gone on deployment, or if they're, finishing up their career. It's a big celebration. Congratulations. And then you come home and you feel like, gosh, this is like a foreign country. People are talking different and their behaviors I don't get anymore. And just there is a lot of accommodation that has to be made, and some of that learning is them, right? They need to adjust how they identify themselves to others. Not everybody understands rank, right? Not everybody understands what you might have used to do if it's very military centric, right? And it's going through that transition process. And live and learn is great, right? You learn a lot by living and learning. But the problem with live and learn is that it's slow, right? It is slow, and the consequences that for the mistakes that you make, some of them can be like really consequential as far as time and money and stability. And what I'm all about is to make that transition process more quickly, with fewer mistakes, with being resourceful, with being efficient, and smooth out the kind of the messes before they even happen. Nip it in the bud, because we know what they might expect. And, we understand where some of those transition gaps are, and so it's like watching a young person who is kind of growing into something that you're already really good at. It's like you let toddlers fall down, right? So that they can learn how to
That's
walk.
true.
But you don't want them to get hurt, and you stop those things when it's going to be really kind of not a good thing for them to experience that fall, right? And so live and learn, you can accelerate things if you kind of help them kind of not have to do these things that they fall into otherwise. But other things, it's like self-awareness. It's like, how do you know what you do or don't
That's so good.
have passion for unless you try it? So some of those things is like, okay, you gotta kind of have to figure that out, some of it, but other things you don't need to. Let me just tell you straight up, right? This or that. And that helps, maybe shave off some time as far as how long that might take.
So we're talking about, we talk a little about culture, and we talk about also, hey, being able to, hey, fall and get back up, and
Yeah.
just, how can you prevent certain things? So let's talk about social media, right? So I'm sure someone who's enlisted in the military currently is your social media journey probably looks a lot different than what the
Oh,
social media
yeah.
journey is today outside the military.
Yeah.
And so let's
Right.
talk a little about social media, because it has a play in our culture, our society as a whole. So what's your take on social media? And I bet a lot of people who get out from the military and transitioning, it's a whole new world, right? So I
Yeah,
love to hear
a
that.
lot of the time when you're on active duty, because my career was, I was on active duty the entire time, and so being on social media in the time that I served was something that was kind of frowned upon, because we had this thing called operational security. OPSEC is the acronym for it. And you didn't always want to let everybody know what you're doing and where you're going. And being on social media is just kind of sharing every little detail about this, that, or the next thing as far as what you're doing. And so there's a lot of people in the military who are not on social media where they're posting anything. They're on it because their family is on it. They're on it because members of their community are on it, and they're talking, and they're just keeping informed as far as what other people are about and are doing. But a lot of the time we're not posting about ourselves, and I still don't. I'm on Facebook, and every now and then I'll make a post, but a lot of it is really just kind of me observing and being a wallflower. And where I really do a lot more posting is on LinkedIn, and it's in a professional capacity. It's like there's still this part of who is Emma that isn't presented on LinkedIn because of its it's the professional network. And when I was on active duty and I realized my career was ending, I knew that I needed to kind of start networking. I didn't really know what that meant exactly. But when I when I started my LinkedIn profile, I didn't know anybody other than other people who were in the military or had been. Right? It's like, so I'm thinking, like, who do I know who's out now? Who do I know who's out now? Who do I know who's out now? And I was, using the search feature to find people who's like, oh yeah, they're out. It's like, they're not on here. They must still be serving, right? Or whatever. And I only had about 120, 150 people in my connections when I finished my military career. I mean, I literally knew no one who was a civilian other than like my family and some of my friends. And even coming back from Germany, because my last assignment was overseas in Germany. My husband was in Kansas because my last stateside assignment was in Kansas at the Command and General Staff College. And so when I had assignment orders to go overseas to a unit that was getting ready to deploy, David just stayed here. But coming back to Kansas, we realized, okay, we have little time. We're already here. We don't know where we would move otherwise. So why don't we just stay here? And we knew no one in Kansas City when we moved to Kansas City after I retired. And the name of your show being Zero to Hero, I mean, I literally knew no one when I started as an entrepreneur. And that actually was a really scary idea for David because I went into entrepreneurship right off the bat. I decided to be an insurance agent based on just kind of understanding what my skill set was in the military and how I might apply myself in a new environment. And I said, I want to do insurance or be a financial advisor. And David was like, that's a business that is based on commissions. We don't even know anyone. And I was like, that's okay. I'll meet people. And it's a little bit of a story as far as, the background that David and I have. I'm very extroverted, but I didn't realize it when I was on active duty. Because being a special staff officer, which is what I was, had a very specific functional area that I was expert in. I didn't have an opportunity to talk a lot. It's like when I was in a meeting, I was part of the special staff. If I was given the mic, as far as you've got an opportunity to speak, it was like 2 minutes. It's like, say your piece and get off the stage. And I didn't realize how extroverted I was until after I got out. And I was, meeting people and I was building a business and, the Zero to Hero, it takes time, right? You got to build that network. But I found that I was really good at it and I really liked it.
So when you said you were building that network, so what did that look like for you? Was it just having to put yourself out there?
On LinkedIn, Yeah, on LinkedIn, my husband's the IT guy. I like people and technology is just a vehicle. And so I learned how to use it, right? I bought this course about how to use LinkedIn. Someone who's an expert in that area. His name is John Nemo. And so I took a course. I learned a little bit of how to make my profile, more user-friendly for people who are trying to find folks. And I was continuously updating it as far as the things that were going on with me. And, in person, I'm networking, I'm doing events, I'm going to events, I'm meeting people, doing the one-on-ones, right? And all of these things. And just, it gradually builds as far as the connections that you have. If you have a LinkedIn profile that's well done, right? And you've got the headline, you got the photo, you got the about section, you got these things that are kind of necessary. And you're on there, right? You're on there making posts every now and then. You're engaging with other people's material or whatnot. People reach out to you and ask for your connection. And, it's having intentionality and purpose. And I think, not just in building your social media presence and your brand, but in the transition process, you have to have that. You have to have intentionality, you have to have purpose, you have to be persistent, and but you have to kind of be paying attention too, and adjust yourself when a need is there. Update those things when you realize something new, and keep taking steps, right? Don't get stuck. So
And I think that's so key for our audience out there, who's going to watch it later, or who's coming on the live show. It's so important. What you just said is key, is having intention, and being. I think a lot of times we do stuff and we just go through the action of doing it, but there's no purpose behind it, right? And people can feel it on the other end, right? People who connect with you, they can feel it. Is this a robot, or is this
oh
someone who's
yeah,
intentional, who has a purpose-driven life, right? And I'm really big on that, just having
hmm,
purpose and showcasing who you are, as a
yeah,
person. And naturally, you will find your tribe, right? And the
yeah,
right people will connect with you. And I noticed that in my own career, the more I was myself on these social networks, the more I start connecting with the right. Not that I wasn't connecting with the right with people before, right? But I
right,
connected with a lot of time wasters, people who weren't necessarily the right fit for my brand.
yeah,
So the numbers might be higher, but the conversions, yeah, it converted too if you're looking at business perspective, but they weren't as quality. People I wasn't
right,
connecting with weren't people that I would actually be friends with, or later on, open up new opportunities for me. And
yeah,
I think what you said is so key: purpose, intention. And I think
yeah,
that's life, period. Everything we do
yep,
has to have a purpose and intention. So,
yeah.
so every, every superhero has a different life in your career.
Oh, a defining moment in life and career. Okay. So this is something that I'm going to just share a short little story. When I was in college, I was pre med. And so I was going for a biology degree. And I was also in ROTC. I was going to school on a scholarship, an ROTC scholarship. And my junior year in college was the most difficult of all the various academic endeavors I've ever done. And part of it was, being pre med. Part of it was being an ROTC and all the requirements as far as, my military science stuff. But that year, I wasn't doing very well as far as my own expectations for my science grades. I actually had a tutor. I had a tutor in physics, and if it weren't for my tutor, I was failing. I was getting a C in physics, and I was getting B's in my other science classes, and I mean, I was getting all A's in my military science classes, and I probably had an elective or two or whatever. I was doing well, but in my mind, I wasn't doing as well as I wanted to
Mm.
be for as far as my own standards. And so I was questioning whether I was going to be taking the MCAT in the spring. And this is something that juniors take, right? If they're planning to go on to med school. So anyway, I finished my first semester. I'm home and I'm talking to my mom. And mom's just curious to know how my semester went. And she's asking about my grade reports, like, when are you going to get that? How did it go? And I told her, okay, my grade point may not be so great this semester. And I told her, some of my challenges with school. And so she's like, are you going to be ready to take the MCAT in the spring? And I said, Mom, I don't know if I'm going to take it. And I just kind of said it like that. And she's like, oh, okay, it's because you're want more time to study it. You'll take it in the summer. And I was like, no, Mom, I don't think I'm going to take it ever. And she realized what I was saying. I was afraid of her reaction. This is an Asian mom,
Yep.
right? And I'm pre-med. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, mom's gonna explode. And when she realized what I was saying, she did not get angry. She said, "Oh, you've been wanting to be a doctor for a while. What changed your mind? You don't want to go to med school anymore?" Because she knows the MCAT is necessary, right? I was like, Mom, I don't think I'm going to take this ever. So she realized what I was saying. She did not get mad. And I was surprised. And and I was like, Mom, I don't want to just be a doctor. I want to be a good doctor. I want to be a professional. I think I need to be doing better than passing physics with the help of a tutor. I need to be doing better. I want to be a professional, Mom. And she said, Emma, being a professional is not the title. Being a doctor, being a lawyer, these various things that people, associate to professionalism. Being a professional has to do with how you do your work. Do you believe in it? Do you believe in yourself? Do you have drive to do it well? That's what being a professional is. She reminded me, Emma, you're in ROTC. You're going to receive a commission when you graduate. Being a military officer is one of these titles that have that professionalism associated with it, but it's not the title. It's how you do your work. Do you believe in it? And that was a defining moment for me because I realized that whatever it is that you put your mind to, that if you believe in it, you have purpose, you strive to put yourself out there and do the best you can because you believe in it and yourself. That is what shows up to others as being professional. You can be a janitor and be a professional at it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can be a elementary
and make more money than a doctor.
Right, you can be an elementary school teacher, believe in it, and drive to be your best at it, or a PhD at a university, right? It's that was something that I was 20 years old, 21 years old, and it has been something that I think has translated into the work that I do even now because that transition process, part of it is how you identify yourself and part of it is how you drive towards this outcome. And you can only control that part of it. Your outcomes and your reality, there's a whole other half of it as far as the space that you show up in. You can show up in an environment and be all that as far as having confidence and drive, but if people don't understand you aren't showing up to expectations because they're different than what is in your headspace, then you don't get to be successful because someone else gets to decide. And the resources in that environment, they may not be anything that you can control. You might have a little bit of influence, but altogether is what create your reality. And you have to be cognizant of that. Is it you or is it the space you're in? What needs to change? And maybe some of it is both.
That's so true. And that's so good. So I think you and I had a similar, journey during our college time. So I was a pre-med. So I was a pre-med up to my junior year.
Okay.
Very similar. I wanted to be actually personal trainer. And, I had Asian parents and they told me, I was working at the gym at the time and I was certified and everything. And they told me, hey, Kevin, you can, personal training degrees don't make money. So you can be a personal trainer if you want, but do that as a side hustle or a side gig. So I went to med school because I like children at the time, kids, and so I was a pre-med student up to my junior year. And with being, for those of you who don't know, right, when you're pre-med and the campus you're at don't have a true medical program, you have to take beyond regular hours. So you're at like I think it's 17 plus hours back in I would say that, I was in college during early 2000s, right? And so you have to take an incredible amount of hours in order to even take the MCAT,
Oh,
and
God.
I had one of those defining moments too, where I finally told my mom and dad, like, and it's crazy because having Asian parents, sometimes even, for those of you who are Asian Americans, we have the wrong perspective, because in our heart, we grew up thinking mom and dad's going to be upset.
Oh gosh, yeah. I thought mom was going to blow up. I didn't want to tell her, but she's asking, and
but the truth is, they still love you, just like any other
and that's
culture.
The thing. And they always wanted to support what my goals were, even if they didn't understand it. And that was the thing. Mom was not upset. She just was wondering why, right? She wanted to support my decision, but she didn't understand why. And when I explained it to her, she's like, Emma, that's okay. You have a reason why you've changed your mind, and I understand, right? But my perspective of what it meant to be professional, I mean, what she said just shifted my perspective, and it was just something that I've always remembered. I mean, that was over 20 years ago, right?
That's
and
crazy.
I'm like, yeah, I give a lot of credit to my folks as far as how I turned out, and the way that I show up, the way that I think. And there's a lot of value in that when you have strong support at home. So.
Yeah, and I was the same way when I told them that, hey, I don't want to be a doctor. I don't know if that's, and I ended up switching my degree to, at the time there was, it was .com era, right? So websites were just starting out.
Oh gosh, I still have a degree in biology. I mean, I finished my degree in biology, and what I did in the military, actually applied it a little bit. The subject matter expertise that I had in the military was, I was referred to as a chemical corps officer, but basically what it was all about was environmental risk, identification, mitigation through training and education, program management. And it had to do with these unconventional risks of chem, bio, rads, radiation, and nuclear, that if you're exposed to those things, there's still a potential for you to get hurt. Right. So you have to understand that as a risk. Sometimes it's used intentionally by the bad guys, which it's unconventional and it's illegal. But, it's what a terrorist would want to do, because it's unconventional, it's not expected, it's invisible. And, that kind of scary stuff was what I did in the military. And so I applied my degree to a certain extent. And I'm still very much kind of the biochem nerd. When I'm working with students as an academic coach, I really love being a subject tutor for biology.
That is awesome.
Those things. But yeah, the whole academic coaching, exam prep stuff, I've always been a very good student academically. And, that junior year was just, challenging to my identity of being a straight A student. So that whole defining moment piece, it's like, Emma, you can be a good performer and not have straight A's, right? You can be a professional and not have straight A's.
Yeah, and your career journey, I always tell people now, and I have kids myself, and I tell my wife, what I'm going to tell them is, hey, you're the one stuck with it for the rest of your life, even so it's what you want to live with, right? I ended up, being actually a software engineer for nothing to do with, medical
Oh
stuff.
man, no kidding.
I turned, my junior year, I switched my degree.
Big
and then,
pivot there.
Big pivot. And then the rest is history. And, and then I went started my development jobs, and then from there, social media started happening. Oversaw teams, and I switched over to becoming a marketing director. So like my career's completely changed from where I started to where I am today. And I think it's important because in life we all have these defining moments who make us who we are, right? And it's
Right.
enjoying that journey. So what attributes, since you work with a lot of heroes, that you feel defines a hero?
I wrote this down. Let me see here. Okay. So the paradigm that I have, the piece about identification and purpose, I think that everyone can be a hero if they have a belief in purpose for a vision of success, right? And they're willing to put forth the energy and effort, time and resources in order to defend that assertion, right? They're able to pursue it. And, our men and women who serve in our military, we're defending the Constitution, right? Providing national security, the interests of the U.S. and whatnot. But that pursuit of happiness, that liberty to choose, the freedom, right, to be who you are, those things that are in our Constitution, I think that if people have belief and purpose and drive, that they can be a hero in whatever it is. The other people who are in service, right, they believe in that purpose of their service, whether they're a first responder or somebody in public service. Any of us who are in business, there's a reason behind the business that we're in, right? But if you believe in it and you believe in yourself and you're striving for excellence in whatever that is, you show up and there you have influence. And I think that's what it kind of means, is people look up to you. And a hero is someone that they believe in because of what they demonstrate, how they show up to others and how they conduct themselves. And it's with strength, right? People who show up with strength in what it is that they're about. And whether you're in business, whether you are, a nonprofit leader, right? If you're in academia, you show up with strength, purpose, and belief, and you go after it with action and intention. That's what is a hero.
That's so good. So I think what you mentioned is real. Actually, no one else has mentioned that in this show, is the part you show up, right? A hero is showing up, right? And it always makes me think of the anyone can be a father or a dad, right? But not every father or dad can show up.
Right.
And that really separates everything, right? And anyone can make a kid, but showing up is the key, right? And that's what makes you that hero to that child, is because you show up for them as a parent. And this goes, I think, both ways, moms too, right? And I think that is so key. And you mentioned something like showing up. I never thought of that. It is an attribute of a hero, because, even in movies, if you watch, somehow they
Superman, he flies in and he comes in, he shows up, right?
He never goes, hey, I'm a little late.
The action piece of being a hero is like, you can talk about it, you can believe that they exist, but it's not real until they show up, right? Until they do something. It's like, okay, the strongest person in the world, prove it. And then they, throw a mountain or something. It's like there has to be action behind that in order for it to be believable.
So if you had to pick a superhero that best relates to you, who would that be and why?
You know what? I was thinking about this. I watched a couple of episodes to kind of see what kind of questions you'd ask. But you know what? This is interesting. I'm gonna name a fictional character, and
Okay.
When I was thinking about this, I was like, "Oh, that kind of represents me, relates to me." I thought of Forrest Gump. Okay,
Okay.
so Forrest Gump and his mother, because in the movie, for those of the people who are watching this who may not have seen it, Forrest Gump, in the movie, he had some challenges as a child, as far as developmental challenges, physically as well as mentally, right? But his mother refused to believe, right, that those limitations, those challenges would define him in his life. She believed in his potential. She put forth resource, time, and energy to defy what society had assessed for him. And he grew up in the in the show where there were people who believed in him. That was his mom, and so he believed in himself. And despite any of the challenges that he encountered with people who misjudged him, he showed up authentically, right? He was running away from the bullies and he was brilliantly fast, right? Somebody sees that. He showed up and demonstrated an ability or talent that he didn't necessarily recognize for the value that it had. And then he was afforded opportunities because of just showing up authentically. Someone believed in him, he believed in himself, he believed in just showing up. And because of these various things, he had a amazingly successful life, not just in military service, but in business and in just being a philanthropist. I mean, the movie, like I said, it's fiction, but he became a war hero because he believed in his friends. He went back continuously to save them and earned a recommendation for the Medal of Honor. Right? He became a business person because he happened to just be good at ping pong. What was it? Ping pong, right? And there's all these kind of random things that he just showed up and did well because he believed in something.
That's so good. And hey, if for those of you who haven't watched Forrest Gump,
You got to go watch
it's
that.
actually one of my favorite movies.
That is one of my favorite
great.
movies.
Yep, it's an amazing movie. So Emma, before we end today, what's the best way for our audience to follow you or connect with your organization?
I would love to have people connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a lot of what I do in my work described in my LinkedIn profile. And another thing that would be really great would be my website is right now in development. It's getting redone. It's going to be so much better when it gets done. But I'm in the middle of getting that launched as far as the Purple Connection community. I've got a membership community that I'm getting ready to go live with at the beginning of the year. And my website is going to be an entry point for that to learn a little bit more about what it is. And for those who really kind of need that community of support and resources. So toopsconsulting.com would be my website. Right now, it's still the old one. But connect with me through my website between now and the next year. It'll get redone, and it'll be I'm just really excited. It's supposed to be ready at the beginning of the year. So LinkedIn and my website.
Awesome. So, hey, folks, follow her, Emma, on LinkedIn, and also check out her website. And it's going to be, the new year is just around the corner, so it should be done soon. So, yep. Thank you, Emma. Appreciate you for being on the show.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It was my pleasure.
Yeah, it was fun. So